Welcome to A Seat at the Table, a podcast powered by The Ice House, a place for courageous conversations empowering diversity and community in business. You are part of the conversation and have as much to say as anyone else.
So Kenina, thank you so much for being here as our guest this morning. It's awesome. Kenina Court has a passion for building intergenerational wealth. She helps people achieve their personal wealth goals and enables them to go out and be extraordinary in whatever field they work and play. She's the owner-manager and CEO of Pathfinder Solutions and sits on many boards, including the Banking Ombudsman Scheme, Panuku Development, and Oceania Career Academy. So welcome, Kenina, and thanks again for being here.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
Awesome.
Kenina, one of our most favourite questions that we always start with is, who is Kenina? Tell us about yourself, your passions, and what life looks like, because it sounds pretty full.
Is there any other way to live life?
No.
So I guess a mother, a wife, a friend, a chartered accountant, a business owner, an entrepreneur, a daughter, a sister, an aunt, a godmother. You know, these are all the hats that many of us wear, and so, you know, those are some of mine. I'm married. We've been married now for 31 years.
Well done.
So my husband, Alan, and I, we have three amazing boys, aged 26, 24 and 16. Same parents for all of them. I always thought our second boy was going to be a full stop, but it turns out he was a comma.
You can relate to that.
I sure can. I love that. I'm going to steal that.
And so life is pretty full, and it's in moments like this when you kind of stop and have a reflection that you actually go, life is pretty full, because you just get on with life and you do what you need to do, and that just becomes how you live your world. So I don't necessarily stop and think, oh my gosh, I'm so busy. It's just, you just move through life and make sure that you take your moments when you can. I guess my first passion has always been my family. There's nothing I wouldn't do for my kids or my husband. And despite having been a working mother since our eldest was 2, we are really close. And even though they moved out of home a few years ago, we still holiday together. And I think it's pretty cool that, you know, a couple of adults still want to come out and hang out with their adult parents. And we're just, you know, I guess helping our 16-year-old find his place in life here, because he's still at school and trying to work out what he wants to do. So, yeah, I love business. I love helping people figure out, you know, the solutions to their problems. I love helping people get to a point where they are living the life that they want to live, without constraints. So I guess that's me.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks for sharing.
Kenina, what has been a mountaintop moment for you in your career to date, or life to date? And then I guess on the other side of that, what we call a deep valley moment.
I guess probably one of those mountaintop moments was selling my first accounting practice to the firm that's now known as Findex. So at the time I was, you know, just a small firm on the North Shore, and we got approached and it was like, oh my gosh, somebody knows I exist. So that was pretty cool. A deep valley moment was when we had the GFC. So my husband and I, we had been working on this commercial development for 3 years, And things were finally just starting to come together. There'd been a mountain of, we were building an aged care facility, and there had been a mountain of compliance with council and medical, and so it was all starting to come together when we got that cup of tea call from the bank. They said, that $20,000 a month that you've been capitalising on your loan, you can't do that anymore. You have to start paying it in cash. And it was the GFC, and we didn't really have $1,000 a month sitting around not doing anything. So we unfortunately had to sell that development at quite a considerable loss. And that financial loss almost broke us. So we had to claw ourselves back from there. But learned some amazing lessons through that process, and those lessons help me help other people now, so that they don't actually have to do the trial and error themselves.
I would say there'd be a lot of people in similar positions right now.
Yes.
And what are those key learnings that you can pass on to people right now in such a sort of difficult time?
So I guess the first one would be always focus on the cash flow.
Yeah.
Everybody gets really caught up in that asset base, and they want to be able to talk about X $1 million that they have, but at the end of the day, assets don't put food on the table or pay your electricity bills. So focus on the cash flow, worry about that first and foremost, and then the second thing would be don't worry about the assets. Right, the assets they will come. But if you focus on the thing that generates the ability for you to live your life and for your family to do the things that it wants to do, then the assets are just a natural thing that kind of falls out of that.
Because there's a real Kiwi obsession to own a home and own a nice car and a boat and a batch. What do you say to people who are sort of still obsessed by that? Is there a different path?
I think the thing is understanding that you only have one life to live, and this is it. And you can have all of those things, but they all come with some sort of sacrifice. And a lot of people don't want to go through and pay that sacrifice. So a lot of us just want to keep up with our friends and do what they're doing, but the reality is that we can't always do that. We don't have necessarily the jobs or the particular career path that might lead us to that. So at the end of the day, when you are on your deathbed, the thing that's going to sustain you are the experiences that you had with your family. So, make more of those.
Yeah, right? Nice.
So
it's great advice.
Had a leadership person who came into my world, Australian guy a while ago, but he used to talk about who-ness versus what-ness.
Nice.
And often, just trying to frame that differently. But what a defining moment. And thanks for asking the question, Mel, because there are a lot of people who went through the GFC, but there's also an awful lot of people who are experiencing the challenges now who have no experience of it before.
That's right.
And so, thank you for sharing those learnings, because they're incredibly valuable. On a sharing front, can you share any tips or strategies that you've used over the years? I mean, you've just talked about a major point, and the learnings and therefore some of the things you've done as a result. But when faced with the challenges of running a successful business, you're advising clients, all your governance work, as well as being a mum to 3 boys. Talk about some of the things from a strategies or tips perspective that you might want to share.
I guess the first thing is that I don't inherently believe in balance. I think that's something that we all chase, but I think it's unachievable. If you want to be good at something, you have to be out of balance. There's no other way to put it.
Hallelujah.
So that means that there's always going to be a choice between doing one thing and something else. And so, stop trying to have a perfectly round circle.
Yeah, nice.
Sometimes it's a hexagon, and sometimes it's a square, and sometimes it's a rectangle. But just being okay with that, I think is, one of the first things. I think another thing is that guilt that you have as a mother, that, am I spending enough time with my children? Should I be doing more of this? Should I be doing more of that? And you can either let that weigh you down, or what I did was used it as a barometer to check in with myself in some of my decision making. So I made sure I'm always home for dinner, and while I'd work long hours, the time from dinner until the kids' bedtime was always for them. Unless of course I had a meeting or something. We had nannies, au pairs, daycare. My husband was a full-time dad for a couple of years. My mum looked after our kids. Our kids are beautiful, gorgeous, well-rounded humans who are the better for having all of those different perspectives. And yes, I'm sure there are things that, we might have wanted to do differently or whatever, but at the end of the day, we had whatever we had, and we made the best decision that we could at the time. And I love the humans that our boys have grown up into, right? If our job as parents is to produce good, contributing citizens of the world, then, I think that we've done that. And the fact that they like hanging out with their parents says something about who they are. So I think it's,
I think that's everybody's utopia right there. Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, our
it's definitely.
Oldest boy has just moved over to Vancouver just last month. So that's going to make our, family holidays a little bit harder. But we have all agreed that we're going to meet every 2 years somewhere in the world that we all want to go to. And we'll have a couple of weeks just hanging out as a family. And I can't wait till when that grows to, we've got, they've got 2 partners now. So, but when that expands and as more of them come, that, that'll be a reason to, to continue to work hard and look after what my husband and I have built so that we can do those things. Because those experiences are just, that's a MasterCard moment. They're priceless.
Absolutely. And Vancouver's a really lovely place to visit. My daughter and son-in-law lived in Vancouver for 2 years, and I can tell you, it's a beautiful place to visit. Particularly if you like to ski. Yeah. But even if you don't, Vancouver Island, and it's beautiful. Beautiful. And you can get direct there from here, so.
Yes, well, that was his, his thing that he said, if we're moving to Canada, it's got to be within one flight of New Zealand, because he used to live in Toronto, and that's a bit of a logistical nightmare.
Yeah.
Kenina, I think it's so wonderful to hear that they've come out the other end, because I remember, there were some hairy moments along the way, and for my children too, but, have you got any sort of tips for the mums that are right in the thick of it right now?
So an amazing moment was we were having some real problems with our eldest, and I went to the managing partner of the Auckland office in Findex, and I had built up this whole case about how I needed to go down to 4 days a week, because I felt if I could do my job in 4 days a week, I had then a day to do all of those jobs that you need to do, and that meant then that the weekend I could devote to my kids, and in particular our eldest, to help them get through this period. And I was so ready to do this big sell, and the partner got into, I wasn't even 2 minutes into my presentation, and he said, if you need the time, you need the time, so no problems, go. So I think part of it is not being afraid to ask for what you need to support your family, and I think women were our own worst enemy in that we give so much to everybody else, and we're always considerate of other people and the load that we might put on them, that actually we forget that sometimes we need somebody else to take some of the load for us. So I think that's part of it, and then accepting that whatever you're doing is the best that you can. And as long as you kind of check in with yourself from time to time and make sure that you're making your decisions for all the right reasons that are important to you, that's all you can do. I mean, you know, we all try as women to be superwoman, and like there's no such thing. There's not even a character, like a Marvel character that's superwoman. You know, like there's Wonder Woman, but there's not Superwoman. So I don't know who this mythical person is that we're trying to be.
Very true.
It's great advice. Thank you.
Yeah, it sure is. So I'm going to take you to some, you know, in terms of some things you're passionate about from a business perspective, but you talk about your passion for building intergenerational wealth. And I'm really curious, what do you think about the current disparity between men and women when it comes to KiwiSaver returns, and what can be done to narrow the gap?
Such a great question, and such a small piece of
a bigger
conversation. Of course, women are going to have less KiwiSavers than men because they're paid
for salary.
The same job.
Yeah.
Hello.
That's just, you know, that's just a logical flow on. It always strikes me as odd that in today's world we still have that disparity because, you know, I'm sure that men are there talking to their daughters and going, you can do anything, you can be anything, you know, they want equal opportunity for their daughters and women. But often those conversations that we have at home, they don't seem to kind of make it into the workplace. So not making them into the workplace, while we might have policies for, you know, hiring decisions and promotions and wages and all the rest of it, it's people, humans, that make those decisions with all of their biases. And there've been an incredible number of research studies done to show that people will not change their belief system unless they can see it. And part of the problem is that the disparity in, not just in pay, but in opportunities between men and women, you can't see it. It's not tangible. So it's really easy to sit there and go, no, what are you talking about? That doesn't exist, because people can't see it. When the reality is that it's there. You don't have to see it in order to believe that it's occurring. And the question is checking in with us, have we made the right decision for the right reasons? You know, that unknown bias that we all bring to everything without realising that we have. Women are the first ones to stop working because somebody in the family needs it. They are the ones who will most likely put a holiday on their KiwiSaver because the family needs money. Right? Men don't think in that same way, and I envy their confidence in being able to do that. But part of how our world works is because of all of these different things. Like them or not, that it's the way it is, but until we start having different expectations, it's going to be pretty hard to change it.
And finding ways to hold a mirror up, probably as well. I was interested in listening, and I don't know who did the research, but research that said that the salary gaps were less in businesses run by men who have daughters.
Interesting.
I find that really unsurprising.
And again, it's probably an unknown bias. I'm not sure that they're making those decisions knowing that they've got daughters, but it's interesting, isn't it? Because it's exactly what you're talking about.
I wasn't aware of it.
Just recently.
Context is everything, right?
Yes.
So when you've got your daughter there, and you know, you can see her in the big wide world, and
but still an unconscious bias. And what I loved about this research is that you can hold that up and say, you know,
Women, I think we have our own biases that contribute to it. I had a role working in New Zealand Post years ago, and one of the things that one of the other accountants in a different division in New Zealand Post did was we tried to set up a like a woman's, not a support group where we all sit around and
burn bras,
bitch about men,
but a support network to help each other, because New Zealand Post at the time was a hugely male-dominated organisation. And just trying to get women to turn up was impossible. So, you know, women aren't really good at playing the game of, that old boys network for themselves.
No.
So
I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah. Why is intergenerational wealth important? It sounds like a really silly, obvious question, but why is it important, especially to women?
I think all women, particularly when they become mothers, they want to do stuff to help their kids. Now, I don't subscribe to the you make all the money, you do all of the sacrifice, and then you give it all over to your kids, right? I think your kids got to make their own way in the world. But, particularly living in Auckland, if you want to help your kids get a house, then they're not going to necessarily be able to do it on their own.
Yeah.
So I think most of us want to try and help our children. So what I'm interested in is how do we do that without lessening what we have? In other words, how do we have our cake and eat it too? Why does it have to be an either or? Why can't it be an and? So that's why I like trying to help people figure out, and a lot of it's because people just haven't considered another alternative or a different way of looking at things. And so if I can bring a number of different perspectives to make them consider other options or ways of achieving the things that they want to, that are congruent with their values and how much time and effort that they want to put into it, then that's a really big win. I know I've got clients now who after 20 years, they're living off their property investment portfolios, they don't have to work, then they're not at the formal retiring age, and that's pretty amazing to be at that, but you've got to be able to play and think about a long game.
Nice.
With your experience and insights into the Pasifika community, where are the barriers for Pasifika? And how is your work with Oceania Career Academy making a difference?
Where does one get started? I think it's like a lot of things. People are their own roadblocks, and Pasifika are no different. Most Pasifika families want their kids to grow up and either be an All Black or a doctor, and that's great, but those are 3 jobs out of how many options that there are available. So at Oceania Career Academy, our thing has started off about being in construction. And so we'd help kids into one of 18 different trades that are related to construction. And it was difficult to start off with because parents want the All Black or the doctor or the lawyer. They don't necessarily even want accountants. And so to help them understand that there are other options for their children and that not all children are geared up for academic or sporting excellence, right? So my son is a great example. Our second son is really struggled with school. He had a learning difficulty called Erlin's. But he's amazing with his hands, and so he's a qualified motor mechanic. And while I never thought that was going to be something that he would end up doing, he loves it, absolutely loves it. So Pasifika aren't necessarily good at thinking about that longer term picture. One of the great things about us is our sense of family and community, but that can also be a thing that doesn't work for us when we will give up some things because we think that's what's better for our family or for our community. And it's that old adage, if you put your oxygen mask on first, then you can help others. But Pasifika are so ready in general to share everything that they have, that sometimes means that they haven't taken into account those longer term thinking. So Oceania Career Academy, we're a PTE, a private training establishment. We have the highest pass rates for Pasifika in the country.
Wow, amazing.
Wow, well done.
Thank you. We're really proud of that. And that's because we have an amazing pastoral program that wraps around our kids. We drive to pick them up if they're not getting out of bed in the morning. So they'll spend 3 days a week in school, 2 days a week with us, and at the end of it they come out with the first year of an apprenticeship under their belts. They've had work experience.
Wow.
We've helped them get their driver's license. They understand what drug testing in the workplace means.
Yeah.
Health and safety, that's pretty amazing. We've just started doing work now in the health sector.
Great.
So we're going to be starting. We've just started our first program now, and that's an area that Pasifika are incredible at, because they are, a culture of
Caring.
Yeah.
You just experience it. Excuse my ignorance. National?
We're just at
Auckland.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You talked, Kenina, before about people can't be what they can't see, and it's the same for Pasifika people as for women. How important is it to you as a Pasifika woman that you are role modelling and being someone, I guess, young Pasifika woman can look up to and think, I want what she's got, or I want to do what she's done?
Oh, wow, that's a multi-layered question. I guess the first thing is that there's a phrase in the Bible that says, to whom much is given, much is expected. And what that means for me is that for those of us who have had skills or talents, opportunities, there is a responsibility on us to use those to help the people around us. So I guess that's the first thing. The tough thing about being a role model is that, and I know this because I feel it myself when I look at role models, my role models, is it's really easy to look at somebody who's a role model and go, oh, there's no way I could ever do that or be that, because they have X, Y, Z and I don't have that, and it's just never going to happen. So I probably want to be real more than necessarily be a role model, and just try to live a good life where, in my own way, I make as much of an impact I can in the world that I live in, and where people come into my orbit and those people need something that I can do to help, is that then to do whatever I can for them. So, that's probably, I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you.
It's probably a good lead-in to another question, which has to do with your varied roles, or the range of work you do when it comes to your governance roles. And I'm particularly keen for us to hear more about, how did the role as director of Eke Panuku come about, and how does this fit in with your other roles, given you're obviously not sitting around twiddling your thumbs much. Can you give us any sneak peeks into the vision for inner city Auckland and making this a more welcoming environment?
Okay, so Auckland Council outsourced their recruitment for all directors to a recruitment agency, and that recruitment agency has placed me before, so I guess that's how they came across me. And one of the useful things about being an accountant is that most boards need some
financial skills.
And then, from a overall point of view, I obviously also tick the box because I'm a woman. I tick the box because I'm Pasifika. So I think those are all things that help, and there's nothing I can do about those. Those are just genetically what I've been given. The thing that I love about Eke Panuku is it is intergenerational wealth, but in a different form. So we're all about making Auckland an amazing, incredible place to live, not just now, but for in the future. And so the decisions that we make today affect what our city is going to look like in the future. And so, you look at something like Wynyard Quarter, which Wynyard Quarter 20 years ago just didn't even exist. It was an industrial yard
with tanks and
tumbleweeds.
Tumbleweeds, exactly.
Yeah.
That's right. And so you look at it now, and it's just an incredibly thriving, vibrant area that lots of people from outside of who's living in that Wynyard Quarter who come in for everything, right? And we've got really big plans for what we're going to do with the rest of Vineyard Quarter, which will just create places for people to experience and enjoy in the generations to come. Some of the work that we're doing right now, like the City Railway, that's because we've got a really long-term view of what we want Auckland to look like and what it needs to be a modern, vibrant, thriving city. And we can look to other cities around the world and see, well, what have they got that contributes to that for them? And go, well, we haven't actually got a central railway. So there's no denying it's pretty difficult, particularly for businesses in Auckland City now, to be going through all of that change. But we have to believe that on the other side that that what we're going to end up with is going to be better. We're working with the police to increase their presence, more security patrols to make our inner city feel safer. And I think we've largely are in the process of achieving that. But Auckland Council can't have a 2-year horizon. No. It can't even be a 3-year horizon. No. Like our government. It has to have a horizon that's 50 plus years. And when we did some things 50 years ago, maybe we didn't think about some of those things that we would need today. So now we can either, when's the best time to plant a tree 20 years ago? Or the best time is now. So we can put a line in the ground and actually do that now. Which is what E25 Panuku on behalf of Auckland Council is doing.
Oh, that's great to hear.
Well done.
Yeah. Cool.
We've copped a bit of flack for that, but
but having foresight, you do cop a bit of flack for that because a lot of people can't see it, can't see the future and can't see the bigger picture.
Can't see far enough out. And I think that's been a challenge. I think as a country we haven't taken a stand on what our vision for the country far enough out is, and therefore it doesn't cascade down into regions or into cities. So well done.
But you can get that. You're a shop owner. On the main street,
100%,
and your business has been hugely impacted.
Of course.
All you need is for your revenue to grow, and you can't see how that's going to handle all of these roadworks going on.
Especially after COVID. Yes. It's been a tough time. You can understand.
But, do we look after one person or do we look after a city of 1 million people? And the decision shouldn't be that, but ultimately that's what it comes down to.
It's a choice. Cool. Your role with the banking ombudsman is another thing that you do, another string to your bow. You must have some interesting stories there, some probably that you're not allowed to share, but others. Is there anything that repeatedly comes up as a complaint that you can share with us?
Yes. So the biggest area of growth for us right now in the banking ombudsman is scams and fraud. Right, I don't know if any of you saw the series that we put together last year with Nigel Latter.
Yes.
One of the big things to come out of that is we all think we can spot a scam, but when we're actually in it, we can't see the wood for the trees. So that's a really big thing, and I think things like open banking, crypto will potentially help with some of those things, but like anything, they'll also exacerbate it. Because we have to always be aware of what's going on and where we're putting our money and how we're dealing with it, and making sure that we're not a soft target. The elderly are often, amongst some of the worst affected by that, and we can't always get the money back. Following on from that, the banking ombudsman has been quite vocal in terms of wanting there to be strengthened consumer protection. We can wait for the banks to do it themselves, but like most change, it will happen slowly. So if we can bring in rules and regulations that will force that change to happen a bit faster, that can only be good for consumers. And we want a good banking system that people can trust in and rely on to do the things that they need it to do. So it's a very different role, the banking ombudsman. It is very much in that consumer space, and sometimes protecting people from themselves by making sure that we build in the rules and regulations and policies that we need to hear. But the thing that I love most about it is that I am there as a consumer advocate. So I've got a wide range of clients and situations that present themselves to me every day, and I can take that stuff into the banking ombudsman and go, well, how are we dealing with this? Because these are things that I'm seeing coming up with people on an everyday basis. So like we're ready, for example, for the hardship that's coming as a result of increased interest rates. So we put in place processes with the bank so that we could escalate those sorts of cases much faster because of the amount of stress and worry that people will be under. So I'm really proud to be able to do some of those.
It's nice to know that there's something going on in the background. Yes. I mean, I don't know if many people know that.
I bet people don't.
Yeah.
And the real stuff that's being brought, it's not theory, it's actually
real people.
Things playing out with real people being brought into an environment that has the potential to do something with it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So I love that I wear different hats and take those into the various roles that I do, just to help people and make sure that, you know, they get a fair go.
Yeah. That's brilliant.
There's a real theme, Kenina, which is just incredible. And it must just be your orientation to, making the most out of who you are.
Look, it doesn't always go well. You know, you make mistakes and, you know, people don't do necessarily what you expect them to do, but all you can do is work with the cards you've been dealt.
You've had many seats at the table. But what does a seat at the table mean to you?
It means having a voice in a place where I can make a difference. For me, that doesn't have to be in front of everybody. I'm very happy, you know, working away in the background. I don't need the glory and the ego that comes with that. I just want to be able to, I know it's a cliche, I just want to be able to help people and make a difference. And sometimes the only way that I can do that is to literally get a seat at the table from a governance point of view. And other ways, that's working with people who are going through whatever they're going through and making sure that they know that they've got the support that they need to do that. And sometimes pulling something out of the box that will just make a huge difference for them.
Beautiful.
Incredible. What we always like to finish with is the question around who's one person that you would like to thank, someone that has been influential or significant or meaningful to your journey.
I don't have one person. You know, life is a team sport, so you can't get anywhere in life without there being a number of people around you. So, you know, the first person's my husband. He's been incredibly patient to let me do the things that I've done. I had a boss years ago. I was working in a company called RQ Graphics, and he was the managing director and I was the CFO, and he introduced me to the concept of wealth when I was about 25 years old. I didn't even know that was a thing. I just knew that some people had money and some people didn't. So that was a real eye-opener. And then that led me to listening to Robert Kiyosaki in Rich Dad Poor Dad, and he was the one that really unlocked my curiosity to figure out this whole thing around wealth, because wealth means different things to different people. For a lot of people, is money. But for some people, we had a client once who all she wanted to do was have 3 months off a year so she could go and build a house for humanity.
Wow.
So we had to figure out how she made 12 months of income in 9 months. And we did.
And
so
cool.
She got to go off and live her best life doing that. So it's really all of that. And you can't, like, I couldn't have been ready for Robert Kiyosaki if my boss hadn't introduced me to the concept of wealth, and if my husband wasn't willing to let me go off and be me, right? So yeah. And then there's countless others, you know, through life who make a difference, and, you know, who you just wouldn't be who you are today without those people. And I thank every single one of them.
We do too.
Yeah.
Given who you are.
I think there'd be many people out there wanting to book one-on-ones with you, including myself. Is that still a thing?
Yes. I love helping people. It's actually why I work such long hours, because that's the thing that gets me into bed in the mornings. And if I can help, just let me know.
I'll be emailing you tomorrow.
Well, as someone who you have helped many times, thank you. Thank you for helping me, but thank you for sharing all of this with us today.
Well, thank you for having me on your podcast, because I think it's a great thing.